$11 million. In 1892, that's almost $400 million today. Crazy, right? That's what Alva Vanderbilt spent building a summer cottage in Newport, Rhode Island. Not a year-round home, not her primary residence, a place to spend 8 weeks impressing people she hated. Marble House wasn't built for comfort. It wasn't built for family. It was built as a weapon. Pure white marble, gold-covered walls, rooms designed specifically to make other mansions look inadequate. Every detail calculated to intimidate, overwhelm, defeat. And it worked. The woman Alva was targeting, Mrs. Caroline Astor, the queen of American society, was forced to acknowledge her, forced to attend Alva's parties, forced to admit that this nouveau riche Vanderbilt upstart had won the social war. But here's what nobody expected. The weapon turned on its owner. Marble House became Alva's prison. Her loveless marriage played out in rooms covered in gold. She forced her daughter into a traumatic arranged marriage within its walls. And eventually, Alva abandoned the palace she'd spent $11 million creating, walked away from the ultimate symbol of her victory. Then the mansion had a second life. Alva transformed it from a social weapon into a political one, headquarters for the women's suffrage movement. The palace built for vanity served revolution. This is the story of the most expensive, most aggressive, and ultimately most complicated mansion of the Gilded Age. The story of a woman who understood that in 1890s America, architecture wasn't just shelter, it was power. Do you think Alva was brilliant or ruthless, hero or villain? And if you're fascinated by the dark side of Gilded Age excess, drop a comment below, and please subscribe or support the channel by the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. It allows me to dig deep into making these videos. Now let's go back to the moment when Alva Vanderbilt decided to declare war with marble. The insult that cost $11 million. New York City, 1883. Alva Vanderbilt stands in the ballroom of her Fifth Avenue mansion, hosting what she believes will be her social breakthrough. A costume ball so elaborate, so expensive, that New York society will finally accept her. She's spent a fortune. The mansion is decorated like a Renaissance palace. The costumes are custom-made in Paris. The guest list includes everyone who matters in New York. Everyone except the one person whose presence would validate everything, Mrs. Caroline Astor. The Mrs. Astor, as she's known, controls New York society absolutely. Her approval means you've arrived. Her snub means you don't exist, and she's decided the Vanderbilts don't exist. The problem is ancestry. The Astors made their fortune in fur trading and real estate. Still commerce, still nouveau riche by old New York standards, but they've had several generations to develop polish. The Vanderbilts? Cornelius Commodore Vanderbilt, Alva's husband's grandfather, had been a ferryman. A ferryman who became the richest man in America, certainly, but still, the taint of truly new money. Mrs. Astor has made her position clear through calculated absence. She doesn't attend Vanderbilt events. She doesn't acknowledge them socially. And her daughter, Carrie Astor, follows her mother's lead. Carrie isn't attending Alva's costume ball, but Alva is clever, brilliantly, ruthlessly clever. She leaks to the press that Carrie Astor will be attending the ball in an elaborate costume, the Star Quadrille with other society daughters. The newspapers print this as fact. Carrie's friends are excited. Plans are made. Then days before the ball, Alva sends a message. She's terribly sorry, but she can't actually invite Carrie Astor to the ball because Mrs. Astor has never formally called on Alva. Social protocol is strict. You can't invite someone to your home until they've paid you a formal call. Alva's hands are tied. It's a trap, a perfect trap. Carrie is publicly committed to attending. Her friends are going. The newspapers have announced it. If Mrs. Astor doesn't call on Alva, her daughter will be publicly humiliated. Mrs. Astor has no choice. She climbs into her carriage, rides to the Vanderbilt mansion, and leaves her calling card. The formal call that acknowledges Alva's existence. The admission that the Vanderbilts have social standing. Alva wins. Carrie attends the ball. Mrs. Astor is forced to recognize the Vanderbilts. The costume ball is the social triumph of the decade. But Alva doesn't feel triumphant. She feels angry, because Mrs. Astor called on her only because she had to, not because she wanted to. The acceptance is forced, grudging. Mrs. Astor still considers the Vanderbilts inferior. She just can't say so publicly anymore. That grudging acceptance isn't enough. Alva wants total victory. She wants Mrs. Astor to not just acknowledge her, but to bow to her. To admit that Alva Vanderbilt is superior, more powerful, more cultured, more important. And Alva understands something crucial. In Gilded Age America, power isn't just about money. It's about display, about creating something so magnificent that everyone must acknowledge your superiority. You don't just need wealth. You need to deploy that wealth as a weapon. New York won't work. Mrs. Astor controls New York society too completely. But Newport, Rhode Island, the summer colony where America's richest families vacation, Newport is different. Newport is competitive. In Newport, you can win through architecture. The Astors have a Newport mansion, Beechwood. Nice enough. Traditional. But nothing extraordinary. If Alva built something truly spectacular in Newport, something that made Beechwood look modest by comparison, she could win. Not through social maneuvering this time, through sheer, overwhelming architectural dominance. She approaches her husband, William Kissam Vanderbilt, Willie K., to family and friends. Willie K. is the younger brother of Cornelius Vanderbilt II, the one who runs the family railroad empire. Willie K. inherited millions but not responsibility. He's wealthy, somewhat aimless, happy to let Alva manage the social climbing. "I want to build in Newport," she tells him, "something that will make people understand who the Vanderbilts are." Willie K., who's recently received a massive inheritance after his father's death, barely looks up from his newspaper. "Whatever you want, Alva. Build whatever you want." He means it casually. A summer cottage, sure, why not? He doesn't realize Alva is planning war. She has a number in mind. The breakers, Willie K.'s brother Cornelius is building it right now, will cost around $7 million. Alva's cottage needs to cost more, needs to be bigger, needs to be so spectacular that it makes the breakers look modest. $11 million. That's her budget. In $1892, equivalent to almost $400 million today, for a summer house used 8 weeks per year. Willie K. will eventually realize what he's agreed to. He'll see the bills mounting, but by then, it will be too late. Alva will have her weapon, and Mrs. Astor will have no choice but to bow. But first, Alva needs an architect. Not just any architect. She needs the best in America. The man who understands that buildings aren't just shelter, they're statements. They're weapons. She needs Richard Morris Hunt, and she needs him to design not a house, but a declaration of war in white marble. The white marble temple, Hunt's most aggressive design. Richard Morris Hunt is 65 years old when Alva Vanderbilt approaches him about Marble House. He's at the peak of his career, the most prestigious architect in America, designer of the breakers for Willie K.'s brother, creator of palatial homes for the Astors and other elite families. Hunt is also expensive, demanding, and brilliant. He trained at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, the first American to do so, and he brings European sophistication to American ambitions. When wealthy Americans want to prove they have culture, they hire Hunt. Alva doesn't just hire him, she challenges him. "I want something that will make people gasp, something they've never seen in America, something that makes every other Newport cottage look like a farmhouse." Hunt understands immediately. This isn't about comfortable family living. This is about dominance. And Hunt knows exactly what that looks like. Versailles. Specifically, the Petit Trianon at Versailles, Marie Antoinette's private retreat, designed by architect Ange-Jacques Gabriel in the 1760s. Classical perfection, elegant proportions, and crucially built from white marble that glowed like carved moonlight. Hunt will adapt the Petit Trianon for American scale and Alva's purposes. Bigger than the original, more elaborate, and built entirely from white marble, the most expensive, most impressive material possible. 500,000 cubic feet of white marble. Think about that volume. That's roughly 1,400 tons of stone, quarried, carved, shipped, and assembled into a summer cottage. The marble comes from quarries across America and Europe, white marble that will gleam in Newport's summer sun, visible from the street, impossible to ignore. The exterior design is pure neoclassical, the style of ancient Greek temples by way of French royal architecture. 4 massive Corinthian columns dominate the entrance, each one carved from a single piece of marble, each one weighing tons. The columns aren't decorative, they're statements. They say, "This building is permanent, classical, worthy of emperors." The facade is perfectly symmetrical, mathematically precise. Hunt obsesses over proportions. The height of windows relative to walls, the spacing of columns, the angle of the roof. Everything calculated to create visual harmony that the eye recognizes as correct, even if the viewer doesn't understand why. But Hunt isn't just copying the Petit Trianon. He's improving it, expanding it, making it more American. The original Trianon was elegant but modest, suitable for a queen's private retreat. Alva's marble house will be elegant but overwhelming, suitable for crushing your social enemies. The building measures 50,000 square feet, not as large as the Breakers, but every square foot is more expensive. Where the Breakers uses Indiana limestone, beautiful but relatively common, Marble House uses pure white marble throughout. Where the Breakers has 70 rooms, Marble House has about 50. But those 50 rooms contain more concentrated luxury per square foot than anything else in America. Hunt designs the house on a lot overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. The mansion faces the water, positioned so arriving guests see the full facade, those massive columns, that gleaming white marble, the perfect classical proportions. The effect is immediate and overwhelming. You don't approach Marble House casually. You approach it in awe. The ground floor contains the public rooms, the spaces designed to impress guests. The second floor holds family bedrooms, functional certainly, but secondary to the mansion's real purpose as a showpiece. The third floor has servants' quarters, because running a 50-room marble palace requires an army of staff. But the real genius is in the details Hunt specifies. The marble isn't just white. It's multiple shades of white and cream, creating subtle variations that add depth. The roof isn't plain. It's covered in decorative elements that only architects would notice, but that signal craftsmanship to everyone. The windows aren't standard. They're custom-made, with glass imported from France, set in frames designed to let in maximum light while maintaining the classical proportions of the facade. Hunt specifies bronze for the exterior details, gates, railings, decorative elements. Bronze, not iron, because bronze is more expensive and doesn't rust. The bronze will develop a patina over time, a green tint that adds age and gravitas. Everything Hunt chooses is calculated for maximum impact. The construction begins in 1888 and will take 4 years. 4 years of constant work. Stonemasons carving marble, craftsmen installing details, engineers solving problems that have never been encountered before because nobody has built anything quite like this in America. The costs mount immediately. 500,000 cubic feet of marble isn't cheap to quarry, transport, or install. Skilled stonemasons capable of working with marble at this scale are rare. Many have to be imported from Italy, where marble craftsmanship has been refined over centuries. Housing and paying these craftsmen for 4 years adds enormously to costs. But Alva doesn't care about costs. She cares about impact, and Hunt is delivering impact. Every design decision, every material choice, every detail is selected not for comfort or practicality, but for one purpose: to create a building that announces Vanderbilt's superiority so loudly that nobody can ignore it. Hunt designs the interior spaces with the same aggressive intent. The public rooms on the ground floor will be showcases, each one designed to overwhelm visitors in different ways. The gold ballroom, the Gothic room, spaces that don't just impress, they intimidate. But we'll get to those rooms in detail later. For now, picture the exterior taking shape over 4 years. White marble rising block by block, those massive columns being hoisted into place, the bronze details being installed, workers swarming over the construction site, transforming Alva's rage into architecture. By 1892, Marble House is complete. Hunt has created his most aggressive design, a building that looks like it should house gods, not people, a temple to wealth and power, a weapon carved from marble. The final cost, $11 million, more than Hunt estimated, more than Willie K expected, but exactly what Alva wanted. Because you can't put a price on crushing your enemies. You can only build something so magnificent that they have no choice but to bow. And Mrs. Astor, looking at Marble House rising in Newport, understands exactly what's happening. Alva Vanderbilt isn't just building a summer cottage, she's building a siege weapon. And Mrs. Astor's position as queen of Newport society is under attack. Willie K's blank check, destroy her. William Kissam Vanderbilt isn't a bad man. He's just not particularly interested in anything. His older brother Cornelius runs the family railroad empire with obsessive dedication. His younger brother Frederick collects art and builds museums. Willie K likes yachts and horse racing, and generally doing as little actual work as possible while enjoying his inheritance. When his father, William Henry Vanderbilt, died in 1885, Willie K inherited something like $65 million. Not the bulk of the fortune, that went to Cornelius as the eldest, but more money than most people could imagine. Enough that Willie K never needs to work, never needs to worry, never needs to do anything except enjoy himself. Which is exactly what he does. He buys yachts, multiple yachts, each one more elaborate than the last. He races horses, he throws parties. He's pleasant, charming in a low-key way, and completely unambitious. He married Alva because she was beautiful and interesting, and because his family approved of her background. Her grandfather had been a cotton broker, respectable enough. What Willie K didn't realize when he married Alva Smith in 1875 was that he was marrying the most ambitious woman in America. While Willie K wants to sail yachts, Alva wants to conquer society. While Willie K is content with his status, Alva is burning with resentment at every perceived slight. By 1888, their marriage is already strained. Not openly hostile, not yet, but distant. Willie K spends most of his time on his yachts. Alva spends her time planning social campaigns. They occupy the same houses but lead separate lives, which is common enough among Gilded Age wealthy couples. When Alva tells Willie K she wants to build in Newport, his response is genuinely generous. Whatever you want, Alva. Build whatever you want. He sees it as a gift, a summer house for his wife, something to occupy her attention while he sails. He signs the checks without much attention. The first bills from Hunt, design fees, preliminary construction costs, are substantial but not alarming. Willie K has built things before. He knows construction is expensive. This is fine. Then the bills start escalating. The marble alone costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Importing European craftsmen costs more. Custom furniture, original art, elaborate fixtures, every month brings new expenses. By 1890, Willie K has spent several $1 million and the house isn't even half finished. He confronts Alva. This is becoming very expensive. Alva's response is calculated. She doesn't apologize or promise to reduce costs. Instead, she reminds him why they're building. You want people to respect the Vanderbilt name? This is how. You want Mrs. Astor to acknowledge that we're her equals? This is the price. And she's right. Willie K may not be ambitious, but he's not immune to social competition. His brother Cornelius is building the breakers. His sister-in-law is hosting increasingly elaborate parties. The Vanderbilt name is ascendant in Newport, and Willie K likes being part of that, even if he doesn't care to lead it. More importantly, Willie K understands that refusing Alva now would mean admitting defeat. They're too far in. Stopping construction would mean an unfinished mansion, a public embarrassment, a monument to failure. Better to finish and have something spectacular than to stop and have wasted millions on nothing. So he keeps signing checks. $5 million, $7 million, $9 million. The bills keep coming, and Willie K keeps paying, increasingly unhappy but unwilling to stop. By the time Marble House is complete in 1892, Willie K has spent $11 million. He owns the most expensive house in America, and he hates it. Not because it isn't magnificent, it absolutely is. Not because Alva was wrong about its impact, she was right. He hates it because it represents everything wrong with their marriage. Alva built this house not for him, not for their family, but for her own ambition. Every room screams Alva's taste, Alva's vision, Alva's victories. Willie K is just the man who paid for it. There's a story, possibly apocryphal but telling, that when the house was complete, Willie K looked at the bills and said, "If I'd known it would cost this much, I'd have built it out of gold." Alva supposedly replied, "I would have preferred it." Whether that exchange actually happened doesn't matter. It captures the dynamic. Willie K sees Marble House as an expense. Alva sees it as an investment. He paid for a house. She bought a weapon. And the weapon works. Because Marble House isn't just expensive, it's intimidating. Every element Hunt designed, every detail Alva specified, every dollar Willie K spent, combines to create something that makes other Newport mansions look inadequate. The Breakers is larger, but it's Indiana limestone, beautiful but not shocking. Marble House is pure white marble, a material so expensive that using it for an entire house is almost offensive. Mrs. Astor's beechwood is elegant, but it's traditional, conservative. Marble House is bold, aggressive, impossible to ignore. Willie K may resent the cost, but he can't deny the result. When Marble House opens, Newport society is stunned. Nobody has built anything like this. The white marble gleams in the summer sun, visible from blocks away. The classical proportions make it look like a Greek temple transplanted to Rhode Island. It doesn't fit Newport's aesthetic, it dominates it. And that was Alva's plan all along. She didn't want to fit in. She wanted to crush the competition. Willie K's $11 million bought exactly that. But there's a cost beyond money. Willie K begins spending even more time on his yachts, away from Marble House, away from Alva. The mansion she built to elevate their family actually accelerates their separation. They're married, they live in the same houses, but they're essentially estranged. Alva doesn't care, or pretends not to. She has what she wanted, the most spectacular mansion in Newport, undeniable proof of Vanderbilt's superiority, a weapon aimed directly at Mrs. Astor's throne. Willie K's unhappiness is irrelevant. His money bought victory, and victory is all that matters. The question now is whether the interior can match the exterior's impact. Can the rooms inside justify $11 million? Can they deliver the knockout blow Alva needs? Hunt designed them to do exactly that. And when visitors first walk through Marble House's doors, they discover that the exterior magnificence was just a warning. The real weapon is inside. The Gold Ballroom, a room built to humiliate. Walk through Marble House's entrance, and you're immediately confronted with wealth so extreme it becomes surreal. The entrance hall is white marble, floor, walls, ceiling, not painted white. Actual white marble, carved and polished until it glows. Your footsteps echo off stone that cost more per square foot than most people earn in a year. But this is just the introduction. The entrance hall is designed to disorient, to make you feel small, to prepare you for what comes next. Turn right and you enter the Gold Ballroom. Gold. Everywhere. Every surface that isn't marble is covered in gold leaf. The walls, the ceiling, the decorative moldings, the pilasters. Real gold, hammered into thin sheets and applied by craftsmen who specialized in gilding. The room glows, literally glows, with golden light reflected from hundreds of surfaces. The ballroom measures 40 feet by 40 feet, not huge by ballroom standards, but perfect for Newport parties of 50 to 100 guests. The ceiling rises high, creating vertical space that makes the room feel larger and more impressive. 4 enormous mirrors dominate the walls, each one framed in gilt bronze, each one reflecting golden light back and forth until the room becomes a chamber of infinite gold. But the gold isn't the most expensive element. That would be the ceiling. The entire ceiling is one massive painting, created by Italian artist Giovanni Battista Tiepolo, or rather attributed to Tiepolo. The painting shows mythological scenes, gods and goddesses in classical settings, elaborate Baroque composition, the kind of ceiling you'd find in a Venetian palace. Hunt acquired it from a European collection, had it carefully removed, shipped to America, and installed in Alva's ballroom. Whether it's genuinely by Tiepolo or just in the style of Tiepolo is debatable. Art authentication in the 1890s was loose, and wealthy Americans were buying anything European dealers claimed was authentic. But authenticity almost doesn't matter. What matters is that Alva has a ceiling painting that looks like it belongs in a palace, installed in her summer cottage, adding another layer of intimidation. The furniture in the gold ballroom is all Louis XIV period, or excellent reproductions. Gilded chairs upholstered in silk damask, tables with bronze mounts. Every piece selected to complement the gold walls and create a cohesive aesthetic. Hunt didn't just design a room, he designed an experience where every element reinforces the message. The Vanderbilts have unlimited wealth and impeccable taste. The bronze details throughout the room are by American sculptor Carl Bitter, who Hunt frequently collaborated with. Bitter created elaborate decorative elements, cherubs, garlands, classical motifs that blur the line between architecture and sculpture. These aren't just decorations, they're art pieces that happen to be structurally integrated into the building. The floor is marble, naturally. Different colored marbles arranged in geometric patterns: white, cream, pink, gray. The pattern is subtle enough to be elegant, but complex enough to demonstrate craftsmanship. Walking across the floor, you're walking on stone that required weeks of skilled labor to cut and install. But here's what makes the gold ballroom truly aggressive. It's designed to make every other ballroom look inadequate by comparison. When Mrs. Astor hosts a ball at Beechwood, her ballroom is lovely. Wood paneling, nice chandeliers, perfectly respectable. But after you've seen Marble House's gold ballroom, Beechwood's ballroom looks modest, ordinary, middle class almost. That's Alva's genius. She's not just building something impressive, she's resetting standards. After Marble House, every other Newport mansion has to be evaluated against a new benchmark, and almost all of them fail that comparison. The gold ballroom has another function beyond intimidation. It's where Alva will host the balls, dinners, and musicales that define Newport society. This is her theater, her stage, the space where she'll perform social dominance. When Mrs. Astor attends events here, and she will have to attend, she'll be forced to acknowledge that Alva's stage is superior to her own. Hunt understood this perfectly. He didn't design a comfortable room for entertaining. He designed a weapon. Every golden surface, every elaborate detail, every expensive material choice is calculated to overwhelm. Guests walking into this ballroom don't think, "How lovely." They think, "How can I possibly compete with this?" They can't. That's the point. Alva has built something beyond competition. You either acknowledge her superiority, or you refuse to engage. And refusing to engage means admitting defeat. The gold ballroom cost roughly $2 million to create. $2 million out of the $11 million total. Nearly 20% of the entire mansion's budget spent on one room. Excessive? Absolutely. Worth it? From Alva's perspective, completely. Because this room will win the war Mrs. Astor doesn't even realize she's already lost. But the gold ballroom is just one weapon in Marble House's arsenal. Hunt designed multiple spaces, each one targeting different aspects of social competition. The Gothic room demonstrates cultural sophistication. The library shows intellectual depth. The dining room proves the Vanderbilts can host elaborate meals. Together, these rooms create overwhelming evidence of superiority. Let's walk through them, one by one, and understand how Hunt and Alva weaponized interior design. The Gothic room, the library, and the dining room. From the gold ballroom, guests would be guided through Marble House's other public spaces, each room designed to overwhelm in different ways, demonstrating different aspects of Vanderbilt superiority. The Gothic room sits adjacent to the gold ballroom, and the contrast is deliberate. Where the ballroom is all light and gold, the Gothic room is dark and dramatic. Hunt designed it as a medieval Great Hall transported to 1890s Newport, a demonstration that the Vanderbilts appreciate history, that they understand European culture deeply enough to recreate it authentically. The walls are covered in carved oak paneling, not just paneling, elaborate Gothic tracery, pointed arches, intricate details that required master woodcarvers months to complete. The ceiling is coffered oak with painted heraldic designs. A massive fireplace dominates one wall, carved from stone with Gothic detailing that makes it look centuries old rather than brand new. The furniture is all Gothic revival, chairs with pointed backs, tables with elaborate carving, pieces that look like they belong in a medieval castle. Some are authentic antiques purchased from European collections. Others are reproductions so skillful that only experts can tell the difference. Hunt and Alva weren't interested in authenticity for its own sake. They wanted the effect, the atmosphere, the statement that the Vanderbilts could recreate any historical period perfectly. The Gothic room serves a specific social function. It's the gentleman's retreat. After dinner, men would retire here for cigars, brandy, and conversation, while women moved to the drawing room. This was standard Gilded Age practice, but the Gothic room makes it theatrical. Men sitting in this space, surrounded by medieval architecture, could imagine themselves as lords, barons, rulers of ancient estates. The stained glass windows, imported from European churches and castles, cast colored light across the room, creating shifting patterns as the sun moves. The effect is moody, atmospheric, romantic in a dark Victorian way. This room appeals to men who fancy themselves sophisticated, who want to believe their continuing traditions stretching back centuries. Move from the Gothic room to the library and you encounter another form of intimidation: intellectual superiority. The library isn't as elaborate as the gold ballroom or as atmospheric as the Gothic room. It's more restrained, designed to look like a serious space for serious people. The walls are lined with carved walnut bookshelves reaching from floor to ceiling. A rolling ladder provides access to the highest shelves, practical but also theatrical, suggesting the collection is so extensive you need equipment to reach it all. The books themselves are a mix. Some are genuine rare volumes, first editions, leather-bound classics, volumes Alva collected from European dealers. Others are decorative sets purchased by the yard, selected for their impressive spines rather than their content. This was common among wealthy Gilded Age families. You bought a library not to read but to demonstrate cultivation. The furniture in the library is Renaissance revival, heavy, dark, masculine. A large desk positioned to catch light from tall windows. Leather chairs for comfortable reading. Everything suggests scholarly pursuits, intellectual depth, the kind of serious thinking that common people couldn't possibly understand. But here's the key. Alva isn't particularly scholarly. Willie K. certainly isn't. This library is set dressing, a stage for performing intellectualism rather than practicing it. And that's fine, because the point isn't genuine learning, it's the appearance of learning, the suggestion that the Vanderbilts are cultured enough to value books, refined enough to need a library. The dining room is where Hunt and Alva demonstrate wealth through everyday function. Because in the Gilded Age, how you ate was as important as how you decorated. The dining room is enormous, able to seat 30 guests comfortably, 50 if needed. The table is custom-made, carved from rare wood, so long that servants would need to move dishes using special serving carts. The chairs are Louis XIV period, or expensive reproductions, each one a work of art, each one more valuable than most people's entire dining sets. But the real expense is in the details. The china is custom-designed Sèvres porcelain. Each place setting costs what a working man might earn in 6 months. The silverware is sterling, heavy, elaborate, with the Vanderbilt family crest engraved on every piece. The glassware is French crystal, hand-blown, each glass unique. The table linens are Irish linen, hand-embroidered, requiring full-time staff just to maintain. The walls feature tapestries, genuine Renaissance tapestries purchased from European collections, worth fortunes individually. They're not just decorative, they're insulation, making the room warmer and improving acoustics. But mostly they're status symbols, proof that the Vanderbilts can casually hang priceless art on their dining room walls. The ceiling is elaborate plasterwork, classical motifs, garlands, cherubs, all covered in subtle gilding that catches light from the chandeliers. 2 massive chandeliers hang over the table, crystal and bronze, each one requiring servants to clean and maintain hundreds of individual pieces. Dinners at Marble House weren't meals, they were performances. 12 courses, each served on different china, each requiring different silverware. Servants in formal livery moving silently around the table. Wine selected from Alva's cellar to pair with each course. Conversation guided by Alva, who would direct topics, include or exclude guests from discussion, control the evening's flow like a conductor leading an orchestra. And the guest list for these dinners was carefully calculated. Invite someone, and you acknowledge their importance. Exclude them, and you communicate their irrelevance. Alva used dinner invitations as weapons, rewarding allies and punishing enemies. Mrs. Astor would have to attend these dinners. Social protocol demanded it. When someone of equal standing invites you to their home, refusal is an insult. And sitting in Marble House's dining room, eating off china more expensive than her own, drinking wine from Alva's vast cellar, Mrs. Astor would be forced to acknowledge that the Vanderbilts had surpassed her. Each room in Marble House serves this purpose, forcing acknowledgement. The gold ballroom proves wealth, the Gothic room proves sophistication, the library proves culture, the dining room proves refinement. Together, they create an overwhelming case that the Vanderbilts aren't just equal to established society, they're superior. But having magnificent rooms isn't enough. You need to deploy them strategically. You need an event, a moment, where all of Newport society comes to Marble House and experiences these rooms simultaneously. You need a grand opening that cements Alva's victory. And Alva, always strategic, knows exactly how to do that. A ball. Not just any ball. The most elaborate, most expensive, most carefully choreographed ball Newport has ever seen. A ball where Mrs. Astor will have no choice but to attend, to acknowledge Alva's superiority, to bow to the new Queen of Newport. August 1892, the ball that broke Mrs. Astor. The invitation arrives at Beechwood, Mrs. Astor's Newport mansion, in July 1892. Heavy cardstock, elaborate calligraphy, the Vanderbilt crest embossed in gold. Mrs. Alva Vanderbilt requests the honor of Mrs. William Astor's presence at a ball celebrating the opening of Marble House, August 28, 1892. Mrs. Astor holds the invitation and understands immediately, this is a trap. If she declines, she acknowledges that Alva intimidates her, that she's afraid to face the new mansion, that her position is threatened. If she attends, she validates Marble House, gives it her stamp of approval, essentially crowns Alva as her equal, or superior. There's no good option. But declining would be worse. Mrs. Astor accepts. The preparations for the ball consume weeks. Alva oversees every detail personally. The gold ballroom must be perfect. Flowers arranged precisely. Lighting adjusted to flatter guests while showcasing the golden walls. Musicians positioned to fill the room with sound without overwhelming conversation. The guest list is calculated ruthlessly. 200 invitations sent to Newport's most important families. Not everyone will attend. Some will be traveling. Some will have conflicts. Some will decline out of loyalty to Mrs. Astor. But most will come, because missing the event would mean exclusion from the social conversation for the rest of the summer. The dinner before the ball requires its own preparations. 50 guests seated in the dining room for a 12-course meal. Each course planned weeks in advance, ingredients ordered from New York and Boston, wine selected from the cellar, the china, silverware, glassware, all inspected for perfection. Servants drilled on service procedures until they can move through the room like choreographed dancers. August 28th arrives. Newport is buzzing. Everyone knows this isn't just a party. This is a coronation. Alva isn't requesting acceptance into Newport society. She's declaring her dominance. Guests begin arriving at 8 o'clock. Carriages line up outside Marble House, each one depositing elaborately dressed couples. The women wear Paris gowns worth thousands of dollars. The men wear formal evening dress, white tie, tails. Everyone is performing wealth, but they're all performing in Alva's theater now. Entering Marble House is designed to be overwhelming. Guests walk through that white marble entrance hall, already impressive, and then into the gold ballroom. The collective gasp is audible. Nobody has seen anything like this. The photographs and newspaper descriptions didn't capture it. You have to be inside, surrounded by gold, seeing the Tiepolo ceiling, feeling the weight of magnificence, to understand what Alva has created. Mrs. Astor arrives fashionably late, an hour after the official start, which is her prerogative as the queen of society. Except she's not the queen anymore, and everyone knows it. She walks into the gold ballroom wearing diamonds, her famous diamonds, the ones she wears to every important event, the ones that cost a fortune. And the diamonds look inadequate, because you can't compete with a room made of gold. Individual jewelry, however expensive, is overwhelmed by architectural wealth. Mrs. Astor's diamonds make her look like she's trying too hard. Alva's gold walls make her look like a god. Alva receives Mrs. Astor graciously, no gloating, that would be crude, just perfect courtesy, welcoming her rival as an honored guest. But the setting does the gloating for her. Every moment Mrs. Astor stands in the gold ballroom is an acknowledgement that Alva has won. The dinner is flawless, 12 courses served perfectly. Conversation flowing smoothly under Alva's direction. Guests seated according to careful social calculus. Allies near Alva, rivals positioned where they can observe but not dominate. Mrs. Astor is given a place of honor because excluding her would be petty. Including her and making her witness Alva's triumph is sophisticated revenge. After dinner, the ball begins. The gold ballroom fills with Newport's elite, 200 people dressed in their finest, dancing, conversing, being seen. The orchestra plays waltzes and cotillions. Champagne flows. It's spectacle, theater, wealth concentrated and deployed. And Mrs. Astor has to participate. She can't leave early. That would be admitting defeat. She can't avoid Alva. That would be rude. She has to dance, to smile, to act like she's enjoying herself while her position crumbles around her. By midnight, the verdict is clear. Newport society has seen Marble House. They've compared it to every other mansion in town, and there's no comparison. Alva has built something beyond competition. Mrs. Astor's beechwood is lovely, certainly, but it's not this. Nobody's house is this. The ball continues past 2 a.m., late by Newport standards, but Alva's guests don't want to leave. They want to stay in the gold ballroom, to absorb the experience, to be able to say they were there the night Marble House opened, the night Alva Vanderbilt became Newport's undisputed social queen. When Mrs. Astor finally departs, she's cordial, gracious, perfectly mannered. But everyone notices she looks tired, defeated. For 20 years, she's controlled Newport society through force of personality and social position. Tonight, she's been outmaneuvered by wealth so extreme it becomes its own form of power. The newspapers cover the ball extensively. The New York Times, the Herald, the Tribune all describe Marble House in breathless detail. The most magnificent private residence in America. Unparalleled luxury. The Vanderbilts have created something extraordinary. The coverage is exactly what Alva wanted. Public acknowledgement that she's succeeded. But here's what the newspapers don't cover. The personal cost. Because Alva has won the social war, but she's losing everything else. Her marriage to Willie K is hollow. Her children barely know her. She's been too busy managing social campaigns. And the mansion she built as a weapon is becoming her prison. Victory, it turns out, isn't what she expected. The gold ballroom is magnificent, but it's also empty most of the time. The Gothic room is impressive, but nobody actually uses it. Marble House is a stage set for performances that happen 8 weeks per year, then sits vacant for 44 weeks. Alva has everything she wanted: the most expensive mansion in America, undisputed social supremacy, acknowledgement from everyone who ever doubted her. And she's never been more miserable. The weapon she built to destroy Mrs. Astor is about to turn on its owner. Victory in a marble prison. Summer 1893, 1 year after Marble House's triumphant opening. Alva sits alone in the gold ballroom, reading correspondence. The room designed to hold 200 guests now holds one woman, surrounded by gold and silence. Willie K isn't here. He's on his yacht, the Alva, ironically named after his wife during happier times. He spends entire weeks sailing, visiting other yachts, dining with friends, anything except being at Marble House. The marriage is dead, not officially, not yet, but dead in every way that matters. They maintain appearances when necessary, attend events together, smile for society, but privately they're strangers. Willie K wanted comfort. Alva wanted conquest. Those goals were never compatible. Marble House was supposed to be Alva's greatest triumph, and it was. She defeated Mrs. Astor, became Newport's social queen, proved that Vanderbilt money could buy anything. But victory tastes like ashes. The magnificent rooms feel hollow. The social events feel repetitive. She's 50 years old, wondering what she's accomplished beyond spending her husband's money on marble and gold. Their children feel the coldness. Consuelo, now a beautiful teenager, is miserable. Willie K. Jr. and Harold sense the tension. The servants know everything: separate bedrooms, days without conversation, the pretense that fools nobody. But servants don't gossip outside the house. That's the deal. Alva tries to fill the void with more parties, more dinners, more everything. But each success feels emptier than the last. She's won the war and doesn't know what to do with the victory. So she finds a new project: Consuelo's marriage, not to an American, to European nobility, a duke, a title that will validate everything, prove that Vanderbilts are equals to ancient aristocracy. Consuelo's opinion on this? Irrelevant. Alva is her mother. Alva knows best. The fact that this will destroy Consuelo's happiness doesn't matter. What matters is winning. Again, at any cost. Consuelo's tragedy: the daughter sold for a title. Consuelo Vanderbilt is 18 and in love with Winthrop Rutherford, Win, a handsome American from a good family. They've been courting secretly because Alva has forbidden it. Alva has other plans. Charles Spencer Churchill, 9th Duke of Marlborough, 23 years old, aristocratic lineage, bankrupt. He needs American millions to save Blenheim Palace. Alva needs a title. It's a transaction. Consuelo resists. She tells her mother she loves Win, doesn't want the Duke, will be miserable. Alva's response is cold. Your feelings don't matter. The family's position matters. The negotiations happen throughout 1895. Not between Consuelo and the Duke, but between families and lawyers. How much money? What terms? The dowry? It's like a business merger where the commodity is Consuelo's life. When Consuelo threatens to refuse, Alva plays her final card. She'll commit suicide if Consuelo doesn't comply. It will be Consuelo's fault. The guilt will destroy her. It's psychological torture, cruel, calculated, effective. Consuelo is 18, sheltered, dominated her entire life. She believes her mother might actually do it. She can't bear that responsibility. Consuelo agrees, under duress, under threat, under emotional blackmail. Win tries to see her one last time at Marble House. Alva has servants physically remove him. Consuelo watches from a window, crying, helpless. November 6th, 1895. St. Thomas Church, New York. Consuelo wears white satin and looks like she's attending a funeral. Her eyes are red from crying. Photographs show a bride who's already dead inside. The ceremony proceeds. 2,000 guests. Willie K. escorts his daughter down the aisle, looking as miserable as she does. He's complicit. He signed the papers, agreed to the dowry, let this happen. The vows are spoken. Consuelo's voice barely audible. Ring on finger. Married. The Duchess of Marlborough. Alva has won. Consuelo will later write, I spent the morning of my wedding day in tears and alone. I was a prisoner, as though I were going to my doom. The marriage is predictably miserable. Cold Blenheim Palace. Distant Duke. 2 sons to secure the line, then virtual separation. Consuelo will eventually divorce in 1921, remarry for love, find some happiness. But she'll never forgive her mother. And Alva? Satisfied. Her daughter is a duchess. The Vanderbilt name connected to British aristocracy. Worth it. Consuelo's misery is unfortunate but necessary. Except something else happened in 1895 that nobody expected. Alva's own marriage finally, publicly collapsed. The divorce that shocked America. March 1895. 8 months before Consuelo's wedding. Alva files for divorce from Willie Kay. The scandal is immediate and massive. Divorce in 1895 isn't just unusual, it's social suicide, especially for women. Divorced women are suspect, shunned, lose their position. Alva knows this. She spent 20 years building that position, $11 million on Marble House to cement it, and she's voluntarily destroying it. The official grounds, Willie Kay's adultery. Required under New York law, you need grounds, not just unhappiness. But the real reason is simpler. Alva is done. Done pretending. Done being trapped with a man she doesn't love in a palace that feels like a prison. Willie Kay wants out too. He just wasn't brave enough to initiate. The settlement is negotiated quickly. Alva gets a massive cash payment and the New York mansion. But she has to give up Marble House, and that's the price. The palace she designed, the weapons she built, the space where she defeated Mrs. Astor. It stays with Willie Kay as part of the Vanderbilt estate. And Alva walks away, without hesitation, because Marble House has become her cage. That gold ballroom, just a reminder of how empty victory feels. Those magnificent rooms, hollow spaces echoing with loneliness. The palace she built is a prison, and Alva is done being imprisoned. Newport society is shocked. Mrs. Astor, quietly, must be satisfied. Alva won the war, but destroyed herself. The victory was brief. Except Alva doesn't care anymore. She's discovered something liberating. When you stop caring about social position, you can't be threatened by losing it. Within months, Alva meets Oliver Hazard Perry Belmont. Wealthy, divorced, interesting. They marry in January 1896, less than a year after her divorce. Scandalous speed, but Alva doesn't care. Oliver respects her intellect. The marriage is genuine, not strategic. She moves to Oliver's Newport mansion, Belcourt Castle. Smaller than Marble House, less grand, but hers in a way Marble House never was. But the most important change is internal. Alva discovers she doesn't need social acceptance, doesn't need Mrs. Astor's approval, doesn't need Newport's validation. She's wealthy, intelligent, finally free. And she's going to use that freedom for something that actually matters, fighting for women's right to vote. Every skill she developed, manipulation, strategy, social warfare, relentless determination, will now serve a real cause. Marble House, the weapon she built and abandoned, will eventually return to her story. Transformed, repurposed, serving a revolution she couldn't have imagined when she first hired Hunt to design her revenge. From social weapon to political weapon. Oliver Belmont dies in 1908. Alva is widowed for the second time, but unlike after Willie Kay's death, she's not lost. She's found her purpose, the fight for women's suffrage. By 1909, Alva is one of America's most prominent suffragettes. She hosts meetings, funds campaigns, organizes protests. She uses every skill she developed in social warfare, strategy, manipulation, relentless determination, but now for a cause that actually matters. Not defeating Mrs. Astor, defeating the legal structures that deny women basic rights, and she needs a headquarters. A space impressive enough to legitimize the movement, visible enough to attract attention, symbolic enough to make a statement. She needs Marble House. Willie Kay still owns it technically, but he barely uses it. Their son Willie Kay Jr. has inherited management of the property, and in 1909, Alva approaches him with a proposal. Let her lease Marble House for suffragette meetings and events. Willie Jr. agrees. Maybe he feels guilty about what happened to his sister Consuelo. Maybe he just doesn't care what happens to a mansion nobody uses. Either way, Alva gets access to the palace she abandoned 15 years earlier. Walking into Marble House again must feel surreal. The gold ballroom where she defeated Mrs. Astor now hosts meetings about women's voting rights. The Gothic room where men once smoked cigars becomes a planning center for protests. The dining room where she served 12-course meals now serves tea to activists strategizing political campaigns. But Alva doesn't use Marble House the way she did before. This isn't about impressing people. It's about organizing them. The magnificent rooms become functional spaces, meeting halls, planning centers, event venues. The marble and gold backdrop legitimizes the suffragette movement by association. If meetings happen in a palace, they can't be dismissed as fringe activism. Alva hosts a Chinese tea house on Marble House's grounds, a separate building designed as a suffragette gathering place. She funds it personally, designs it to be comfortable and welcoming rather than intimidating. The tea house becomes the real working headquarters, while Marble House provides the impressive backdrop. The contrast is perfect. Marble House represents everything Gilded Age excess stood for: male wealth, female subservience, women as decorative objects in palaces built by their husbands. The suffragette movement meeting there is ideological judo, using the symbol of oppression as a weapon against oppression. Alva organizes major suffragette events at Marble House, conferences bringing together activists from across the country, fundraisers where wealthy women, many of them Alva's old Newport rivals, donate to the cause, rallies where speakers stand in the gold ballroom and demand voting rights for women. The press coverage is extensive. Mrs. Belmont opens Marble House for suffragettes. The juxtaposition is irresistible to journalists. The palace built for social warfare now hosts political warfare. Alva, once society's queen, now leads a movement that threatens society's foundations. Mrs. Astor is still alive, still living at Beechwood, watching this transformation with what we can only imagine is confusion. The woman who defeated her socially is now attacking the entire social structure they both operated within. Alva has gone from wanting acceptance to wanting revolution. The suffragette years are when Alva becomes genuinely admirable. Not because she's perfect, she's still imperious, still controlling, still capable of cruelty. But she's using her power for something beyond herself. The energy she once spent on social climbing now goes to political change. The money she once spent on marble and gold now funds campaigns for voting rights. In 1914, Alva helps organize a major suffragette conference at Marble House. Hundreds of activists attend. Speeches happen in the gold ballroom. Strategy sessions in the Gothic room. The Chinese tea house hosts smaller planning meetings. For a week, Marble House becomes the epicenter of American suffragette activism. And it works. The legitimacy, the visibility, the resources Alva provides genuinely help the movement. When the 19th Amendment passes in 1920, giving women the right to vote, Alva can claim some credit. Not for doing the hardest work, grassroots activists did that, but for providing resources, visibility, and elite support that helped push the movement to victory. After 1920, with suffrage won, Alva's use of Marble House diminishes. She's in her 60s, slowing down. The Chinese tea house continues hosting smaller events, but the major conferences end. Marble House returns to being what it always was, a magnificent, expensive palace that nobody quite knows what to do with. Alva dies in 1933 at age 80. She's outlived Willie Kay by a decade, outlived Mrs. Astor by decades, outlived most of her rivals and allies. Her obituaries focus on her suffragette work more than her social conquests. That would have pleased her. Marble House passes through various hands, sold, donated, eventually landing with the Preservation Society of Newport County, the same organization that operates the Breakers and other Newport mansions. It becomes a museum, a monument to Gilded Age excess, and to the woman who weaponized that excess twice, first for social war, then for political revolution. But the story of how Marble House survived, how it's preserved today, and what it means now, that's the final chapter. Marble House today, the monument to ruthless ambition. Walk up to Marble House today, and the first thing you see is white, gleaming white marble that still looks impossibly clean after 130 years. The four massive Corinthian columns, the perfect classical proportions. From the street, it looks like a Greek temple, transported whole to Newport and planted on Bellevue Avenue. Over 400,000 people visit Marble House annually. That's more visitors in 1 year than attended Alva's parties in her entire lifetime. The palace built to exclude has become radically inclusive. Anyone with an admission ticket can walk through the gold ballroom, stand where Mrs. Astor stood in defeat, see the weapon Alva built. The Preservation Society of Newport County owns it now, operates it as a house museum alongside the breakers and other Newport mansions. The organization carefully maintains the building. That white marble requires constant cleaning, the gold leaf needs occasional restoration, the systems need updating without compromising historic integrity. Annual maintenance costs run into millions. But Marble House generates revenue that justifies the expense. The admission fees, the weddings and events hosted there, the merchandise sales. Together they make Marble House financially sustainable. It's one of the few Gilded Age mansions that pays for itself through tourism rather than requiring constant subsidies. The tours take visitors through the ground floor, the public rooms Alva designed to intimidate. The gold ballroom is the highlight, always. People photograph the gold-covered walls, the Tiepolo ceiling, the elaborate bronze details. Guides explain that this single room cost $2 million in $1892. Visitors gasp. The numbers are still shocking 130 years later. The Gothic room, the library, the dining room, each space interpreted for modern visitors. Plaques explain the architecture, the materials, the symbolism. But the tours also explain the human story. Alva's ambition, Willie Kay's money, Consuelo's forced marriage, the suffragette meetings, the transformation from social weapon to political weapon. The Chinese tea house on the grounds has been restored. It hosts smaller events and serves as an exhibit space focused on Alva's suffragette work. This edition acknowledges that Marble House's story isn't just about Gilded Age excess. It's also about women's political awakening. The interpretation is balanced. The tours don't romanticize Alva. They present her as complicated, ambitious, sometimes cruel. They explain she destroyed her daughter's happiness for a title. They also explain she used her privilege to advance women's rights. Both things are true. Marble House contains multitudes. Compared to the Breakers, Marble House feels more aggressive, less comfortable. The Breakers is larger but somehow warmer, designed as a family home, even if an absurdly grand one. Marble House was never designed for comfort. It was designed for impact. That intention is still palpable. Walking through Marble House feels like being in a weapon, not a home. The building's preservation is remarkable. That white marble exterior looks nearly as good as it did in 1892. The gold leaf in the ballroom has been carefully restored. The furniture is period appropriate, much of it original. This isn't a house that's been altered or modernized. It's genuinely a time capsule, showing exactly what Gilded Age excess looked like at its peak. But there's something melancholy about it too. All that marble and gold serving no purpose beyond being looked at. The rooms that hosted Alva's triumphs and tragedies now host tourists taking selfies. The gold ballroom where Mrs. Astor admitted defeat now hosts weddings for people who've never heard of Mrs. Astor. The palace built for dynasty houses nobody. Yet that's also appropriate. Alva built Marble House to prove Vanderbilt's superiority, to win social wars, to create a legacy, and it has become a legacy, just not the one she imagined, not a dynasty, not continued family ownership, but a preserved monument showing what Gilded Age ambition looked like, what it cost, what it achieved, and what it destroyed. The mansion she built as a weapon, abandoned as a prison, repurposed as a revolutionary headquarters, now serves as a museum teaching us about all three phases. About the social structures of the 1890s. About the cost of ambition. About how women like Alva navigated and eventually challenged their world. Marble House stands today not because it was loved, Alva herself abandoned it, but because it's architecturally significant and historically important. Hunt's design is genuinely masterful. The craftsmanship is irreplaceable. The story it tells matters. Those reasons justify the millions spent maintaining it. Would Alva be pleased? Probably not entirely. She'd hate that anyone can buy a ticket and walk through her ballroom. She'd be annoyed that the tours mention her failures alongside her successes. But she'd appreciate that Marble House survived when so many other mansions didn't. She'd be satisfied that her name is still known, that her story still fascinates. The $11 million revenge mansion outlasted everyone. Mrs. Astor, Willie Kay, Alva herself, the entire Gilded Age social structure it was built to dominate. It outlasted them all by transforming from a weapon to a museum, from a statement of superiority to a lesson about history. That's not the victory Alva wanted, but it's the victory she got. And 130 years later, white marble still gleaming in the Newport sun, Marble House stands as proof that the most ruthless ambition and the most aggressive architecture can, against all odds, survive. Changed, repurposed, reinterpreted, but standing. The weapon Alva built became her prison, then her revolutionary headquarters, then America's monument to Gilded Age excess and female ambition. Not the legacy she planned, but perhaps the legacy she earned.